Hi guys, welcome to my channel and thank you for subscribing. In today's episode, what I'm going to talk to you about is the 4 factors that predict a divorce. Now, what we're going to look at is what the psychological and scientific data has found, that there are only 4 factors in a marriage that will predict whether or not it's going to last or whether it's going to end in a divorce. And if these 4 factors are present in your relationship, then chances are your relationship is doomed for divorce. And what I mean by this is that may not happen today, it may not happen tomorrow, it may not happen in 5 years, but it's predictable. At some point in time, your relationship is going to end. Now, when people think about what causes a divorce, they often assume it's going to be affairs or abuse or somebody's a narcissist. These are the typical things that people assume. But the reality is, what they found is your personality or your neuroticism or your anxiety and your personality itself doesn't determine whether or not your relationship is going to last. It's not a dispositional cause. Instead, whether or not a relationship lasts is entirely based on the dynamics of your conflict. What I mean by that is how you fight, how quickly you resolve that fight, and how deeply you go into the fight. The fights determine whether or not you're going to stay together, not necessarily how much you love each other, not about personality, not about extracurricular activities, what you're doing outside of a relationship. It's very much about the conflict. Now, these are the 4 things that cause irreversible damage during conflict. And what I'm going to talk to you about is how to undo this if this is happening in your relationship. Now, this was a research study that was conducted by Dr. Gottman and in his institution. And what they found when they studied couples, and they studied thousands of couples, they found that the first factor in marital couples conflict that determines whether or not they stay together or get divorced is the element of criticism. Now, what I mean by criticism is we all are going to criticize each other in relationships. In every relationship, we're all going to have kind of criticisms. We're going to have things to say that we want to improve. But behind every criticism is a need. And most people, when they're criticizing, what they're really saying is they're masking what they truly want with an insult. And as a result, they end up projecting anger, and the person is hearing dissatisfaction. So there's no room to grow and there's no room to improve. So for example, if my partner is coming home late from work or with friends or whatever it is, they come home late. A critical way of saying that is, you're so selfish, you come home whenever you want, you treat this place like a hotel, I don't even know why I'm with you. That is a very harsh criticism. And as much as that may be realistic and it may be true and may be exactly how I'm feeling, the person I'm saying this to has nothing to work with. They can't improve our connection as a result of me lashing out and saying criticisms. But if I replace that with my true need, because my need would be, I want to spend more time with you. I don't like that you're always out. I want to connect with you. If I replace the criticism with how I feel and what I need from them, they've got something to work with. So if I take that same criticism and instead of saying, you're always out, you're so selfish, you don't have time for me, I don't know why I'm with you, you change it to I feel lonely when you're always away. I need you to come home more often so we can spend some time together. If I replace it with me rather than you and what I need rather than what you're doing, that becomes workable. So couples that stay together, they have perfected the art of replacing a criticism with an instruction. I feel like this. I want you to do this. I would appreciate it if you can. They have the same kind of grievances with their partner, but they replace it with instructions. And that way their partner knows what to do. Now, if the partner then still disrespects their boundaries, then it's a different story and perhaps they've got completely opposite intimacy needs. But at least you've given them the tools and you've effectively communicated. So that is the first sign that a relationship is doomed, is if there's criticism. And how you improve that is replace it with an instruction highlighting your true needs. Now, the second factor, which is actually the biggest determinant on whether or not your relationship is going to last or break down, is something known as contempt. Now, what contempt is, it's almost like frozen anger that you have towards your partner. It's like built up resentment and anger over the years that is released in the form of mocking them or making fun of them or dismissing them. So because over the years your partner may have upset you or may have disrespected you, or just, you've lost love for each other in ways. So what happens is when you communicate with them on a daily basis on what should be quite nonchalant issues, you do it with some level of mocking. So you might roll your eyes when they talk, or you might make fun of them in public, or you might, lash out at them. Essentially, you're showing them that they don't mean much to you. So when they complain about something, they're like, oh, here she goes again, and rolls eyes. Or if he starts asking you to do something, you're like, oh God, here he goes. That kind of dismissal of their emotional needs is the biggest predictor of divorce, and it's known as contempt. Now, it builds up over the years. It's usually there's some frozen anger that you never resolved in an earlier date. But how you can undo this and how you can undo contempt is replacing mocking with just an atmosphere of appreciation. What I mean by this is every opportunity you get to appreciate what your partner does for you, as small as it may seem, as frequent as it may happen, you show appreciation for the things they do rather than a focus on the things that you hate. The reason why that is so important, and some people might say, well, I don't want to be grateful for the bare minimum. So what if he pays the bills? Or so what if she looks after the babies? That's what she's supposed to do. Even if it's what you're supposed to do, you don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to do it. You don't have to. They're choosing to. And even if it is the bare minimum, when we get appreciation for the bare minimum, it encourages people to start then doing the maximum. But when you don't get appreciation for the bare minimum, it's like trying to drive a car without petrol. You don't have the fuel or the energy to want to do more for your partner. So if you get into the habit of scanning the room for things that you can compliment them on, perhaps being like, oh, you look nice today, or thank you for picking the kids up today, or thank you for always grabbing my lunch, or whatever it is, any opportunity to show appreciation and remove the resentment, it will act as an antidote to the contempt. The next factor that predicts a divorce is defensiveness. Now, what defensiveness is when your partner is expressing a concern, instead of listening to that concern, your brain is working out a response. Your brain is starting to think about how you can say, well, you do, and you said, your brain is looking for the response rather than actually taking into account what they're saying. The defensiveness, why that is so difficult is because it prevents the relationship from the arguments from coming out of the gridlock. They kind of start bumping heads, and then neither of them will let go because they're both saying, well, you did this and you did this, and the defensiveness comes up. Now, why this is so detrimental to relationships is it removes responsibility. It removes your partner's ability to influence you in any way, shape, or form, and it removes your ability to be responsible for your behavior. And you start to see your behavior as a reaction to their behavior rather than as a cause for the conflict. How you can remove defensiveness is, firstly, if you have a partner that's highly defensive, try and do soft startups. What I mean by this is, if you're going to say a criticism, if you're going to say something and you know they're going to react negatively, you start softly. You try and blame external causes for their behavior first. So what I mean by this is, say, for example, they're always working and they're never spending time with you and the kids. And naturally, you might want to say that to them, but you know they get defensive. You know they're going to say, oh, here you go again. You're just always coming for me, blah, blah. So what you want to do is take a softer startup. You might want to say something, I really admire how hard you work. I really appreciate how hard you're working, but sometimes I need more help around the house. And I really appreciate that it's not your fault that you've got these deadlines, but sometimes I just need so and so. When you start softly, the person is less likely to be defensive. They're less likely. Doesn't mean they're not going to be entirely, but they're less likely to be defensive. But if you start harsh, defenses go up automatically. So you're not going to get what you want out of them. Just remember to bear the outcome in mind. If you want them to take accountability, you're not going to get it through harsh startups. The other thing to do, if you are the person that gets defensive, is try active listening. Try your best when they complain to you or explain something to you, you try your best to understand what they're saying to you and what their true needs are. So if they say to you, I want you to spend more time at home, What you want to do is say, okay, I'm understanding that you want me to spend more time at home. I'm guessing you miss having me around. You try and understand them rather than trying to defend yourself. Take a second to try and understand your partner rather than defending yourself, and that will prevent the defensiveness. Now, the final factor that really predicts a divorce based on conflict styles of partners is stonewalling. Now, what stonewalling simply means is, for some people, when there's conflict and high conflict environments, they emotionally shut down and they go silent. And they will give you the silent treatment for hours, weeks, months, whatever it is. But they literally give you the silent treatment. And if you have a partner that stonewalls and gives you the silent treatment, they start to use their silence as a weapon. They start to punish you through withdrawal. And they usually do it when they know that it bothers you, when they know that you're going to feel a way about not talking to them and you're going to need them and you're going to erupt. The more you do that, the more they withhold. And then that silent treatment ends up causing more pain than the actual fight itself. The silent treatment makes you hate them. It makes you, erupt. It makes you get more disrespectful because you're trying to get something out of them. And it just leads to small issues becoming huge issues. And then you come back with almost injured from the fight because you've spent so much time apart rather than rebuilding. Now, if you have a habit of stonewalling, or your partner has a habit of stonewalling, as you feel like the argument is getting more and more heated, one of or both of you just take a second and say, let's just take a break and I'll be back in an hour and we can resume this in an hour. You take segmented breaks. If you know you don't want to talk and you can't literally handle the argument anymore, but your partner is clinging for you, then what you need to do is take some time out for yourself, but give reassurance. So I'm going to be gone for half an hour. Just leave me alone for half an hour. I promise I'll be back and we can resolve this. Leave me alone for an hour. I promise we'll be back and we can resolve this. You take some time apart. Don't make it days or weeks or whatever it is. Just some time, an hour, 2 hours. In that time apart, try and shift your mood. Watch something that will change your mood or do something that will change your mood. Try and change your physiological responses and then go back to the argument when you're now in a different headspace. If you carry on, what will happen is those small arguments turn into new arguments, you bring up more things, and it ends up erupting. So what you want to do is take that break, give that reassurance, and resume when you're calmer, and then end with some form of connection. So end with either some physical contact, some a hug, or some peace. But if you end on a negative scale and then go on to stonewall, the fighting will lead to contempt. It will lead to criticism. It will lead to all the other factors that predict a divorce. So just to summarize, the 4 factors that will lead to you breaking up with your partner are criticism, contempt, stonewalling, and defensiveness. So just remember, the antidote is to turn the criticisms into instructions, the contempt into appreciation, the stonewalling into reassurance, and the defensiveness into accountability. And hopefully you should see an improvement in your conflict resolution.